In today's video, I am going to be breaking down Darius Garland and his basketball shooting form. He is a very good up-and-coming basketball player in the NBA who plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So let's get down, let's check him out, and let's see how his shooting form stacks up. If you want me to break down your basketball shooting form, make sure to go check out the link down in the description below where I'll be able to break it down for you and give you different tips, drills, workouts, and skills that you may be able to acquire to be able to shoot that basketball better. So here we see Garland using that screen really quickly. To use a screen perfectly like this, what you really want to do is to loop in right behind your screener, which then basically gets that defender locked in on that screener. That's number one, really. But from there, when he goes up for his shot, we can't really see much from this angle, but what we can see is that he has no thumb flick and he has a nice high release. This angle is much better. Here what we see is a quick jab, and then he pulls back and goes for that shot. When he does gather, he gathers at his waist, and there really isn't any drop in his shot to be able to go up for that set point and then release. So what we can see is that he is on his toes. This is very important. This is going to get him up into the air much faster, and from there that's going to be able to at least be able to shoot over top of bigger centers. We can also see that his shoulders are pretty well over his knees, but at least in this circumstance he is leaning a bit more forward than normal, and we can then see that of course his shoulders and knees don't line up with his toes. To have a balanced shot, that's what you'd be looking for. If this is the case with your shot, I would be expecting you to be jumping forward, and that's what we slightly see with his shot, but we just see the leg swing, which is totally normal for a farther shot. What else we do see with his shot is this. When he brings that ball up, he brings it up the middle of his body, and when he's bringing that ball up, he is slightly bending his elbow on that way up. From there, he does tend to shoot from in front of his face. However, we can see that he does have about 90 degrees on his shoulder and roughly about 45-ish degrees on his elbow, which this will give him the stability, while this will give him the power when we're talking about the shot. If you have a 90 degree, it's a faster release. When you're 45, it's a little bit slower of a release. However, it is going to be a little bit more power from that tricep muscle. But we can see that he is also jumping quite high on his shot, and he has very good energy transfer with his ankles, knees, and hips locking at the exact same time. He's already brought that ball up. However, he is straightening his body while he's bringing that ball up. So again, great energy transfer into that shot. And then he does tend to freeze in front of his face for about maybe 2 to 3 frames, which is still technically classified as a one motion shot, and his elbow is above his forehead. Now, not all of his shots will have that leg sway forward. Some of his shots, he is straight up and down, but he does tend to drift in his shot and sometimes landing on his left foot, which is quite interesting. However, he still makes those shots. I do, however, when it comes to his shot, I really like how he leaves his release up there. He has that soft release, and he leaves it up there for a good amount of time as well, until at least that ball drops through the rim. Now, what we can see here in the closer up clip at least is that he does have actually a slight thumb flick, and he locks his wrist, but his hand is soft even though he locks his wrist. We can go frame by frame, and we can see that he does have a slight thumb flick, and then when we see that release, we can see that he locks his wrist, but he leaves his fingers loose, which means that he's got a combination of a soft and hard shot. What does that mean? Well, a combination of a soft and hard shot means that a hard shot is when the wrist locks, and that means that he's going to get a lot of backwards rotation on that ball. Meanwhile, a soft release, when it comes to the fingers at least, is going to be giving him arc. Steph Curry has a true soft release where Steph Curry's wrist locks. However, what we see with Steph Curry is that that hand slightly bounces, and we don't see that with Darius Garland. And it's sometimes like this shot here, he actually leaves his hand straight, where that would be a truly hard release like a Michael Jordan. We can see that he does bring that ball up the middle of his body as well. And something else that we do notice is that he shoots from pretty well in front of his face, which we do see that the elbow and the shoulder do in line up roughly with that rim, and at least half that ball is kind of in line with that upper arm. However, that thumb flick will help get that ball up higher, which we see here, which creates the ability to have that ball over top of the elbow, which creates that shooting triangle that I always talk about, so that he can have that release. Something else that he does have too, that we can see here, is that his body is slightly tilted away from the rim, and that's no real surprise. So he really gets that shoulder and elbow in, and he's able to do that by having that slight tilt. Some players and coaches will say that you should be straight towards the rim, but by being tilted, if you're a player who cannot get your elbow in and it kind of flares out, this is what you would need to do and have just a larger tilt. But if you can get just a slight tilt that we see here with getting your elbow in, that will be good as well. Everyone is different. Everyone has a different shot. We have to remember that. And we can see here that he does get, before he goes into his shot, when he catches that ball, he catches at his shoulders, dips down to his waist. This seems to be his spot. And of course, we do see right here that his shoulders are pretty well over top of his knees and toes when he goes up into that shot. I really do like his shot. Darius Garland, Kyrie Irving, and Steph Curry have some of the best shooting forms when it comes to a thumb flick. However, we have to remember that if that thumb flick is affecting the ball, which means that it's not getting a lot of arc, or if it has no backspin, that means that that thumb flick would be a bad thing. And at that point, you would be looking to correct that. However, if you're shooting more from in front of your face, and then that thumb flick is just basically there to get that ball up into that shooting triangle, and then you take your shot, then you're okay. And at that point, that's just something that's developed. It's something that is natural to you. And if it's not affecting the shot, which means that it's releasing at the same time as your actual release, then it's not going to affect your shot, as long as, again, it's not affecting the backwards rotation or the arc on the ball. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.